The warrior is my personal favorite vocation in Dragons Dogma 2, bulldozing your way through endless mobs and knocking down the biggest of foes in just 2 hits, maybe sometimes even less. There is just something very satisfying about stun locking a dragon, and it brings the power fantasy of smashing bits to pieces, or smashing enemies to bits. It just brings the power fantasy alive of being the absolute Chad man. This is my master vocation, or this is my master class to the warrior vocation, and after you watch this you will be a master at knocking shit down as well. Warrior is your frontline force of nature, being able to smash through trash mobs, swing your weapon and just cleave them out of your way and stagger larger targets makes the warrior an essential part in any team. Your role as a warrior is very similar to that of a fighter, but you have the damage that fighter lacks ultimately. Where fighter is a wall, the warrior is a mountain. You are a frontline monster, drawing the attention of enemies to yourself and away from your team. Your attacks are lethal and unstoppable, being able to shoulder check every enemy in the game. As a warrior, you are able to poise through almost every attack and deal massive amounts of damage. You will get hit a lot, but you will hit harder. Before we move into skills, it is worth mentioning that most of the warrior's skills compete with one another, and you don't really want a whole bunch of skills that do the same thing. It takes away from the flavor of the vocation, so give your vocation some variety to spice things up and handle any and all targets that come your way. Adding skills like utility skills and movement skills and even survival skills, along with big damaging skills, will bring the warrior to life, to its fullest potential even, and just like you saw me do there, you will be able to shoulder check the biggest of knocks. Now keep in mind I am using late game gear, but this is a very good example of what the warrior is capable of. There we have our bigger stagger, and let's just get this attack in. There we go. Now, this is late game gear. You will not kill things as fast as that, but still, that is what you have to look forward to in a warrior, and even later in the game you can take down dragons in a matter of, well, sometimes even under a minute. You can honestly take down a dragon. So, with all that being... Alright, now we get into the meat and potatoes of what makes the warrior so incredibly lethal. The skills. Now, Heavenward Sunder is the advanced form of Skyward Sunder. You strike your weapon in a vertical swing, and when charged you lunge into the air. This deals amazing damage and stagger to your larger enemies. It hits multiple times, and it can hit multiple weak points at a single time. The skill has great utility in all scenarios. You can jaw snipe bigger enemies and give massive amounts of damage to, say, a dragon or a cyclops. When you hit them, you do your stagger damage, you hit them in the eye. When you're hitting a dragon, you punch the heart and you punch the face. It's just an all-round very, very useful skill, and as you see there in the clip, it even can handle harpies, the most annoying enemy in this game by a long stretch. Next up, we have Raising Sweep, which is the advanced form of Rending Sweep. This charges your weapon up and swings it in a horizontal slash dealing with mobs in front of you. Very, very good for an AoE attack and to clear trash mobs in front of you, but honestly, you're better off not using the skill and just swinging your weapon. If you have a look here in the core skills, you'll get this chain of blows. When you time your attacks correctly, your next swing comes out faster. So honestly, it's not worth using a skill slot for this particular skill. Roar is the advanced form of bellow. This has your character shout out a massive roar that attracts the attention of nearby targets. Unfortunately, it does not work as well as fighters' shield drum. Even on a pawn, it does not seem to be as effective, and I've tested it extensively. Honestly, don't go for this skill at all. I don't think it's worth it. You can manage the aggro of your enemies with different augments and rings. Next up we have Ravening Lunge. It's the upgraded version of Goring Lunge. You charge forward with your weapon extended, can impale targets and run with them some distance. You can run into a wall and deal some significant damage. But honestly, this skill is not used for damage. The damage is not there compared to other skills. It is, however, a very, very useful running attack, or a movement skill. Same as with fighter, you are using heavy gear, heavy weapons. So having a skill that can increase your movement as a warrior, especially early on, I cannot overstate the effectiveness of that. But it is not useful as a damaging skill. So use this if you are struggling with the movement as a warrior. It can help you keep on the front line, and just using it without targeting an enemy, you can run some distance. So it's great for movement, terrible for damage. Catapult Launch is the upgraded version of Ladder Launch. Same as the fighter's launch board, you launch yourself or a pawn into the air, reaching heights like never before. Unfortunately, this does not hold up in combat at all, only being useful in exploration to reach certain heights of ledges or any other obstacle where you can't reach normally. Great for exploration, terrible for combat. Pawns spawn this very incessant amount and can honestly disrupt your combat flow. Next up we have Diluvian Strike, which is the upgraded version of Surging Strike. Lunges a small distance forward and stabs the weapon into the ground, or into your enemy if you are mounted onto something. The skill has a very short range and doesn't deal nearly enough damage to justify wasting a skill slot on it. Honestly, do not use this. This is probably the worst skill warrior has at its disposal. Next up we have In Spirit. Very, very good skill. This is the upgraded form of Revivify. It cures you of nearly all the debilitations, and as far as I've noticed and tested, it doesn't seem to cure Blighted or Torched. So everything else, like when you are staggered or stunned or on the verge of being knocked down, when you are put to sleep, all other debilitations you can knock yourself out of. But as far as I've tested, Torched and Blighted doesn't work. If you guys have noticed it doesn't work with anything else, please leave that down in the comments and inform the rest of us. Next up we have Indomitable Lash. It's the upgraded version of Savage Lash. You swing down your weapon from an overhead position and it deals a mighty blow. Can be charged to deal even more damage. This does some good and respectable damage, but honestly it is outclassed by Arc of Might. It's basically a discount version of Arc of Might. So this personally, I think it works better on a pawn, because pawns don't use Arc of Might correctly, in my opinion. So Indomitable Lash is the better choice for a pawn, but I don't think it is worth a skill slot, just because there are skills that outdamage it later down the line. Next up we have Mountain Breaker, or previously known as Null Breaker, the upgraded form of Null Breaker. This is the best stun attack in the game. It deals the most stagger damage out of all your attacks. Now, you can stun lock a dragon with this skill, and it makes it invaluable. When I search for warrior pawns, they almost always need to have this skill equipped, because I am not running it myself, for reasons I will get to a bit later. But Mountain Breaker, you swing your weapon in a semi-vertical, or you lunge your weapon forward in a semi-vertical angle, and you deal, like I said, massive amounts of stagger damage. It does some decent, just normal physical damage, but this is used to stagger the larger targets. Very, very good skill. I will explain why I'm not personally using it a bit later, but do not sleep on this. Next up, we have Tidal Wrath, which is the upgraded version of Tidal Fury. This is a timed block attack that automatically follows up with a counter attack. Being the only defensive option in the warrior's kit, it certainly gives the skill an appeal. It does its job incredibly well, but being something that you have to time correctly, most people won't feel very comfortable using it. But if you pull it off, it is definitely worth it. So take it into consideration. Being the only defensive skill that the warrior has, very, very good. But unfortunately, it's not as user-friendly as something like the fighter's Vengeful Slash, where you just hold your shield up. You actually have to time your parry with this one. Next up, we have Windstorm Slash, which is the upgraded version of Gale Slash. You swing your weapon consecutively in some sort of weird circular motion in front of you, and you know this deals some respectable damage. When you knock a dragon down or you knock a bigger enemy down, you use this, you swing it, and if you time it correctly, it just picks up speed. You can absolutely shred boss's health bars with this. This is what I would put on a pawn instead of Indomitable Lash or Arc of Might, because they use it correctly and it doesn't wind them if they use it at the wrong time. They can easily reset from this. So this is the ideal damaging option for a pawn, in my opinion. But as the main player, I don't think you need to use this. But it is a very good skill. Next up, we have Arc of Might. This is the ultimate Unga Bunga biggest slash you can think of. This is the warrior's Meister ability, and it can chunk 3 or more health bars off of bosses. Drakes, griffins, what have you, chimeras. This absolutely chunks. Unfortunately, it hits like a wet noodle if you don't hit weak spots. Well, I'm actually lying. It does some respectable damage, but it wins you, and it's honestly a waste if you don't use it on a weak spot. So use it on a weak spot and you will chunk enemies. Problem is, if you use it and it doesn't hit a weak spot, you end up using all of your stamina, because this skill consumes all of your stamina, and you are standing there very, very vulnerable for quite a few seconds. So use it wisely. Do not use it on a pawn, because they will use it for this in the most stupid times. So do not use it on a pawn. They will win themselves most of the time, and they will end up not being in the fight as much as you want them. I think that wraps up our skills. Yeah. So let's head on to what I consider to be the ideal setup. So the ideal setup for warrior, in my opinion, is as follows. We have Heavenward Sunder, because this skill does very, very good stagger damage, and it does very good physical damage. It is not as much stagger damage as Mountain Breaker, but the reason I use it instead of Mountain Breaker is because of the sheer usefulness it has. You can use this in almost any scenario. In fact, I think you can use it in any scenario. So this takes the cake for me to stun my enemies and deal damage while doing so, which is why I'm not using Mountain Breaker at the moment. Next up, we have Tidal Wrath. Being the only skill that fighters have as a defensive option, it's very good, and it does good damage, especially against larger targets. Not as, like, it doesn't kill them outright, but it, It's a very good way to avoid taking damage as a fighter, seeing as you don't have a shield and you are in the front line most of the time. Now, remember, fighters do not take as much damage when they are charging up their attacks, but you still take damage. So having a defensive option is always a very good thing. Next up, we have In Spirit. In Spirit, like I said, you can knock yourself out of being dazed or being put to sleep or anything like that. So it is a very, very useful skill to stay in the fight all of the time. And then Arc of Might, like I said, you can chunk health bars off of your targets with this attack. It is insanely, insanely strong. Just don't use it incorrectly, otherwise you end up a useless bag of potatoes. Augments, which I believe is this is the best setup for a warrior, but it is personal preference. If you disagree with anything I say, feel free to engage with me in the comments. First up, we have Dominance. Augments your knockdown power. I don't need to explain this. Being a warrior, your job is to knock down the bigger targets, put them on their ass. So this is a no-brainer. Metal, also a no-brainer. You are in the thick of things. You do not have a shield. You are going to get hit. So having that physical defense, always nice. Provocation, again, you are the tank. You are supposed to draw aggro, keep them off of your ranged units so that something like your sorcerer or archer can pump their damage without being interrupted. Verve, don't need to explain this, augments your strength. Strength is the warrior's wheelhouse. Having more damage, always very nice. Constancy, also no explanation, augments your knockdown power, or knockdown resistance, excuse me. Being able to withstand knockdowns, don't need to explain it, very good. Zeal, as a fighter, or as a warrior, sorry, excuse me, you spam your skills to keep things on the ground. You use Revivify when you are put to sleep or when you are staggered. You use Tidal Fury or Tidal Wrath to block incoming attacks, and very useful. And I think this actually helps with Arc of Might as well. It ends up that you don't use all of your stamina, which gives you a nice window to run around, but I'm not 100% sure on that one actually, so do not take that part with a grain of salt. But I think this is non-negotiable. If you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, if you agree with me, leave a like. If you disagree, let me know. So that wraps up my masterclass video on Warrior. Like I said, Warrior is my favorite vocation, and most of my playtime was spent as this bad boy. It is an incredibly satisfying vocation and very fun to play. Do not sleep on Warrior, especially if you like that big weapon fantasy. It is incredibly versatile, incredibly powerful, and I cannot simp for Warrior enough. If you disagree with anything I've covered, please feel free to engage with me in the comments and we can have a discussion and hopefully come to a better understanding of the game from both of our perspectives. I'm always open to learning new things. My aim is to cover all vocations for newcomers to the game so that they can feel at home when they try and create their own vocation and craft their own build in the manner that they wish to play the game. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and consider leaving a like. It really helps me out a ton. That being said, I'll have more coming your way soon. Thank you again for watching.